Christmas and New Year period. And somebody who is looking forward to that is a former director of elections for the NDC, a former sports minister of Ghana, and then also a deputy minister at the time, also for local government and rural development. And we do have Elvis Afriyie Ankrah. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
What have you been up to? Because I know that you contested the General Secretary position of the NDC. Of course, Fifi Kwete has been working tremendously as well.
Yes.
But what have you been up to since then?
Oh, I've been around. You know, I went into the contest. It didn't work out the way I expected. I was surprised, but hey, we move on. So I've been engaged with the party. In fact, I was a key part of the committee that looked at our presidential and parliamentary primaries. So all the issues about register and all, at the time the committee chairman was not available, so I actually acted. So I've been involved in other activities, but I also have a small international appointment.
Which is what?
That I'm a fellow with the Center for Global Africa, which is currently housed at Delaware State University, and doing some research on the challenges of electoral funding and its implications for democracy in Africa. And we are looking at Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, and 5 other Southern African countries. So we are putting a team together because I cannot be everywhere, and I want to be in Ghana because this is where the action is. So we are putting teams together in the various countries, and it's research-based, which will take a couple of years. So that has also been engaging me. But mostly I'm around, and I work with the party. Fortunately, all the people are my very, very good friends. Fifi is like a brother to me. We're very, very close. Those days when we were doing setting the record straight, that was the time I was the Deputy General Secretary. So I was actually the one behind the scenes putting things together. So we worked very, very closely. Dr. Mane Boama, in 2008, for instance, when I was in charge of operations, he is one person who really saw and experienced some of the operational things that we did behind the scenes. So, and the General Secretary, of course, I've worked with him very closely. So we're working very well together because we have to win 2024 anyway, anyhow, at all cost.
I know one critical thing that had been on the minds of many people, not only supporters or sympathizers of the NDC, I'm sure including yourself as well, was the thorny issue about the declaration of the election, the result thereof, in respect of what the NDC did by way of the coalition, etc. What story can you tell us beyond what you told us within the period of that campaigning for the General Secretary position, and what might have transpired that you think you need to clear in relation to that?
You know, that was one of the things that unfortunately was used against me during the campaign. And my difficulty was that there was a limit as to what I could say publicly.
Okay.
Because when there are some things when you go into, you'll be revealing the underbelly of the party. So I needed to handle it properly. But what I can say is that in 2020, for a very good reason, and for the first time, the election directorate was separated from the IT directorate. Hitherto, it was the election directorate that was responsible for the entire collation and transmission and declaration of results on our part. For good reason, in 2020, we went to Congress in 2019 or 2018, and then a decision was taken that would have an IT directorate separate from the election directorate. So our job as election directorate was to identify, recruit, train, sensitize, and deploy polling agents across the 38,622 polling stations. And we did that job exceedingly well. In fact, we had tremendous challenges because the timetable we had, the resources didn't come. You know, when you're in opposition, there are difficulties. The resources came very, very late. I cannot even mention the date in public. Very, very late. But because of the ingenuity and the team that we had and the fact that we had trained a lot of trainers, you know, ahead of time. So when the resources came, we deployed them. So for the first time, we were able to train all these agents, deploy them, and we were able to deploy them across every single polling station and then we made sure that they did their work. Now, the system was such that after close of polls, then we hand over to the IT directorate, and then they take over. And they also had a system in place. Unfortunately, their system slowed down. You know, by 11 p.m., it slowed down. So when we realized that, then we now had to come back and help them and now do a manual collation, you know, which we used to do in the past. So we now came together and did a manual collation, and by the following day, we had our results. We had our pink sheets for the first time in the history of our party. We had about 99.7% of our pink sheets, you know, which we digitized. It's never happened before. So we did our part. I think it was a structural problem. And so when we did the review post-elections, one of our proposals was that the IT and the election director should be brought back together. Okay. And fortunately, the party has listened to us.
And that's what Dr. Mani
Yes, so you won't have that problem again where the election directorate is on one side with its own command and control, and then the IT is independent on its own. That was a structural problem, which fortunately the party has resolved. So that's what I can say.
Now, with this new work you're doing and this appointment of this fellowship, which also dovetails, I believe, coincidentally, with what roles you've played in party politics as well as in governance and transparency, it would also mean you're working closely in the space, in the area of research. What lessons do you think, looking at Africa, Ghana, from 2020 or over the years, that we can take, not only as a political party, the NDC, but also as a country into 2024?
Okay, so first of all, I've been very, very passionate about electoral funding because I've been in the game. I've been there. There are things that I've seen and there are things that I know that perhaps would not be known to the public. And I've been talking about it over time. So when this opportunity came, I thought that it was a good opportunity for me to get other like-minded people to do further research. Because when you do research, you may find out things, maybe you have some assumptions. So let me use this opportunity to thank Professor Goski Alabi. She was very key in putting the proposal together. And I want to thank my brother Prince Etonam Atipo. He was very, very instrumental in the networking and the rest of the team. Now, we're looking at the impact of election financing on democracy in Africa. You know, we went into democracy without having a discussion about how it is funded. My contention is that we spend too much money.
You mean from 1992?
Yes. We spend too much money every 4 years, particularly incumbents in elections. Now, if you understand Ghana, and having worked in local government, Ghana is not Accra, Kumasi, Takrady, Tamale.
Or Cape Coast.
Or Cape Coast. Or Keta. Or whatever. Or Ho. You go to parts of Ghana, people don't even have water to drink. People drink water with animals. That's the kind of country we have. Meanwhile, we have created a system where we are compelled. It's not as if the political parties are bad or the leaders are bad or, you know, it's a system that we have taken upon ourselves, and we spend colossal
amounts of money,
huge amounts of money. I would challenge media people to begin to engage. Yeah, I've seen some CDDIEA documentation mentioning some figures about what it costs to be a parliamentary candidate, presidential elections. I can tell you those figures are woefully below.
They're 2 to 4 million.
No, it's nothing. Trust me.
To become an MP, for example.
Humongous amounts of money, especially incumbents. Now, what that does, and if you look at the trajectory, apart from 2016, where President Mahama, with his leadership, we didn't take any money from the BOG. Every other election year, if you check, you see that the economy goes down because we spend so much. And then we start building, come election year, we go down again. So we must find a way of dealing with this. There are so many models. What are the best practices? And this is not a naive aspiration. Yes, it costs money to run elections. It costs money to run campaigns. We know that. And we want to thank corporate Ghana and the business entities that have been supporting our democratic process. But I think it's time to pause and reflect and begin to ask ourselves questions. Is this sustainable? Are there any other models? What are the best practices? For example, in some jurisdictions, there's a limit even as to the number of billboards that a particular candidate can put out. What are the lessons that we can learn? Should we consider public funding where we could regulate, the quantum of money that we spend in an election? Because where there is no regulation, it's free for all. So some baron somewhere can put in money and make sure that he buys, a political party, and the monetization is becoming too much. So those are fundamental problems. I think that this country, we have fundamental problems. We normally deal with the symptoms of the problem, but the roots, when you deal with the roots, the symptoms will be dealt with. So it's one of the fundamental problems that I think we have, and it's something we should look at.
It's good that you mention things about the fundamental in dealing with the roots. It also means that we have to look at laws funding political parties, the declaration of those funding means by which they undertake them, the lobbying mechanisms that are available in the developed democracies, etc. Yeah. And I will tie this in to the recent election that was convened by the opposition MPP, for which there was all the brouhaha about money visibly being shared. And the consideration that was made was that, well, they needed to provide transport, etc. But clearly, they're not money made for transport. As somebody who has been in that position of being a director of elections for the NDC, what does it tell you about what portends for 2024 and what we need to do?
I mean, it goes even beyond 2024. It's about the whole system. That is why we are studying the entire system. You definitely need money. You definitely need to give people transportation. But the rate at which it's going, in any case, where does the money come from? We've created a culture where the electorate also expect us to give them money. And they say we don't do anything for them. So when it's time for elections, that is where they have to be paid back. So if we create that culture and institute that culture, it means that politicians can sit back. They will not focus on development. And come election time, they will look for money. And then they will just dole out the money to the electorate. The electorate will go and vote for them. 4 years, they won't do anything. Meanwhile, they will be piling money for themselves. Okay? And that is where the corruption comes in. So people will look at accumulating money because they need huge amounts of money to be able to run a successful election. So it will go on. And the numbers, I can tell you, the numbers that we've looked at, they are frightening, because a country, nobody manufactures money, okay? Whatever money that is used within an economy is part of the productivity. So if such huge monies are taken out, that must be a road, a hospital, a health center, a clinic that you are collecting and eating and sharing on a particular day. So it's a very complex problem that needs to be looked at in a very holistic manner. And there are best practices globally. I don't even subscribe to the fact that places like America, for instance, they are good examples because they also have their APAC and PACs and political action committees where huge amounts of money. We can look at those models, what happens there. The difference is that in those cases, there is a higher level of transparency. So people are able to know this person brought this. And then also the business community, they get benefits, tax benefits and all those things, So it's a whole holistic thing that we all need to look at because my conviction is that where we are going is not sustainable. Okay. And it also affects good governance because if the focus is on money, then every politician comes in and all he wants to do is to accumulate money, wait for the election day, dole out money, and then, the next election, and then you have a banana republic on your hands.
I do know that you issued a statement just within this period, and particularly on some of the extrajudicial killings that happened in 2020. Even before then, we had the IOS West Wagon by-election. And then just recently, Jean Mensa led the Electoral Commission in their interaction with the police, saying that so-called institutions and individuals or states within the space who could predictably create mayhem prior to 2024. What's your own observation and assessment of such statement coming from the independent electoral body?
Okay, so let me take it from the statement that I issued on the 8th of December, which was the 3rd anniversary of the murder of 8 innocent Ghanaians, some as young as 12, 11, 13, 14, etc. I'm very concerned because This thing happened 8th December 2020. We have another election on the 7th of December. And it appears as if it is normal. Nothing has happened. We are not getting any information. The president never spoke about it. He never condemned it. The deputy speaker referred to the people as criminals. 11, 12-year-olds are criminals, you know. And the police issued a statement after the NDC had written to them, and in November 2021, they issued a statement that investigations were still going on. And to date, we haven't heard anything. Now, I know that the IGP is doing his best. He didn't create that problem, but he inherited it. He has a responsibility to let Ghanaians know what is the status of that investigation. Otherwise, what it means is that we're saying that it is normal for people to be murdered during an election. We cannot normalize murder. So if in 2020, 8 people were murdered and there are no consequences, and it didn't happen in a vacuum. If you recall, Ayawaso West Wolgon, as you said, happened. There was a commission of inquiry. Nothing came out of it. Nobody was held to account. Then we went for the registration. Hawa Kumsin in Kaswa admitted that she fired a gun. There were so many people who were brutalized and injured. Nothing came out of it. Then we went into 2020. 8 people murdered. Nothing has come out of it. So if we don't do something about it, if we don't put pressure on the system, the president, the security institutions, so they investigate and let us know, bring people to book. What we're saying is that come 2024, 30 people could be murdered, 40 people could be murdered, and nothing will happen to them. And that is very dangerous.
Are you worried about that?
Oh, I am very, very, very worried. And, you know, I'm even more worried because when you listen to the MPP, they say, oh, we're going to win the election with a strategy. What is the strategy? There's no strategy. Based on my own assessment and polls and other systems, I am convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that the NDC has the potential of winning the 2024 elections in a massive manner.
How so?
Based on my observations, one, based on the current hardships, based on what we are doing, based on 2020, okay? 2020, we improved, okay, from 106 seats to 137 seats. We actually won 142 seats, but they used violence and intimidation to take 5 seats away from us, okay? And if you look at the current state of the economy, and you look at the messaging of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama and all those things, you see that the atmosphere is right for us to win. We can win an absolute majority in Parliament, and we can win 54%. However, when they keep talking about strategy, what are the strategies? My analysis is that, number one, is money. To throw in a lot of money. A lot of things happened during the 2020 elections. For example, in Savannah, there was a bullion van that was on election day, and monies were being distributed to households. So, number one is money. Okay? So the money that we are not putting into productive sectors of the economy, people are piling money to use on election day. Number two is manipulation. So when you hear the Electoral Commission talking, she herself, she has questions to answer. Because what people do not know, it is not known to the public. That in 2020, she actually tampered with the pink sheets, the results declaration form. The results declaration forms have been designed in such a way that there's a portion called ballot accounting. So when the materials are brought to the station, you record. After the polls, you also record, and then you cross-check, and then you fill in. That portion of the pink sheet was taken out. We saw it on the 1st of December after the special elections. Her attention was drawn to it. She was directed by National Security. There was a meeting that she should go back to the original pink sheet. On election day, when we went to the ground, she had not done so. She introduced a stamp. Now, what we observed is that in many of the constituencies in the strongholds of the MPP, these stamps were not on the pink sheets, or the stamps were there but they were not filled, or they were filled but not signed. Now, by these 3 errors, deliberately, what happens is that if there is overvoting, you will not be able to detect. Because that is the process by which you will know. In the morning, this quantum of pink sheets came. By the end of the vote, these are the pink sheets that were, these are the ballots that were issued. and then we count what is in the box. Then you can tally and know whether the number of people at the polling station and the number of ballots issued tallies with what came originally. When she removed that, it created opportunity in their strongholds for them to do ballot stuffing. So she has questions to answer. But more importantly, my biggest worry is the violence. As I said, we had 137 seats, with 137 seats today. But then we know that we had 142. Takwan Swayem, Esikado, Ketang, and many other places. The results were coming in and we knew that we had won those seats. And then the firing started. In Takwan Swayem, for instance, our regional chairman said he had to choose between his life and following the ballot box and the pink sheet. Same. So by using violence and shooting at people, people dispersed, and then the electoral officers, some of them at gunpoint, were forced to declare results. So for me, I can see that happening. And we've seen these things happen in our neighboring countries. You see, we've seen these things happen. So when they keep saying that we have a strategy, the NDC cannot afford to be complacent.
So what needs to be done?
So first of all, is to create the awareness, the consciousness that this is what they intend to do. You know, people perpetrate evil under the cover of darkness. When you shine light on it, you expose them. So that is the first thing, by letting the public know this is what they intend to do. We did it successfully in Asen North, okay, where they brought a lot of money. You all heard about it. But we sensitized the people. So when we sensitize them down, that's why they created that song. What is the song? I think they should play it for us. So come 2024, Ghanaians should know that once they bring the money, you should collect it and chop. But don't vote for them. Because those are monies that should have been used for roads, clinics, to better our conditions, and they've stored those monies under their beds. And so election day, they come and dole out the money. So don't vote for them. That's the first consciousness. The second consciousness is to ensure that the Electoral Commission does the right thing. The pink sheets must be in accordance with, and you see, it's even a criminal offense. It's a serious constitutional breach because you take the CI to Parliament, Parliament approves it together with the attachments, which are the pink sheets. So if you vary them, it's a serious constitutional breach. So we have to ensure that that happens. We have to be vigilant and train our agents on time. And then the violence, that one is not a matter for only NDC, because the people who were killed, you can't guarantee that they had NDC cards, 11, 12-year-olds. It's about Ghana. So Ghanaians, everybody must be concerned. Civil society, media, our religious leaders, academia, everybody must raise their voices and speak.
There are key considerations, and I know that the youth, you talked about it, especially during the period of your primaries, in that quest to be the general secretary that you wanted to be. You were categorizing Gen Zs, the demographics of our population. Young people are crying about excessively not have the ability to get jobs. That's a key consideration. How do we make sure that we balance that with, well, the state of the economy is currently? Because we're before the IMF, and it also means that we're short as far as financing is concerned.
So why are we in the States? I think that's the question we should ask ourselves. We're in this state because we have an over-bloated government, a government that is reckless, and I'm not the one saying it. The Auditor General's reports are there for all to see. So much waste in the government, in every single sector. And that is why President Mahama says one of the first things he will do is to reduce the size of his ministers. So he will work with 60 ministers and deputy ministers. That's number one. Number two, there's a lot of corruption and stealing going on. I mean, I have a list here of the numerous corruption scandals that...
You have a list?
Yes. It's over 100.
Which order do you have?
You know,
is it PDS or
so many? I mean, you could go on. You could spend virtually the whole day talking about corruption under the MPP. And during the NDC time, what were the issues? You can count them on a figure, 4 or 5. And in each one of them, President Mahama took action. Every single one. Victoria Ama just dreamt. She dreamt, though. She was just visualizing if I get, and she paid the price for it. You talk about Baz branding, people were made to refund the money. Talk about Jida. I was the minister at that time. President Mahama said we should investigate. We set up an investigation committee, and the contracts of companies were frozen. These are the facts. You look at these people. It's as if it's 1 week, one corruption. Every day there is something. Every day there is something. So a huge waste of public resources. And he said he's going to ensure that we kept. Look at Bank of Ghana, printing money. 2016 election year, for the first time in the history of this country, the NDC under President Mahama did not take one dime from BOG. Okay? These are some of the things that President Mahama said he will do to ensure that he creates a favorable macroeconomic situation. Once you create the right conditions, then it will create opportunity for you now for the economy to grow. And then, of course, with a game changer, 24-hour job creation strategy. It's a very well thought out strategy.
It is?
Oh, yes,
well,
of course.
The connoisseurs in government say that further and better particulars are needed.
Of course.
What do you say to that?
Of course. And we have stated clearly that when we present our manifesto, we're going to present the policy framework and the strategy document. We're going to do that. But already, we have already given the clear indications that the focus will be to modernize our economy in terms of agriculture, agribusiness, industrialization, and commerce, and the digital economy. Already foundations have been laid. It was under President Mahama that we had over 20,000 kilometers of fiber optics. Okay, we have a 20,000 capacity business
Accra
Business Center. All these things are then was done under President Mahama. In any case, you should ask yourself, what is the track record of the person who is making those promises? For every single sector, if you take health, so many. Have you been to the University of Ghana Medical Center?
Yes, I have, twice.
Some people came to town and I took them there. They couldn't believe it.
I was surprised I was in Ghana.
Yes. You know,
Yeah.
people think it's in Ohio or Maryland or something. This is real in Ghana. Okay, Bank of Ghana Hospital and, Maritime Hospital, the Ridge Hospital. Quality. Look at the Sewa Hospital and all those things that he was doing. So health center, health sector, the resources are there. Education sector, which is now in a mess, the resources are there for people to see. So these are things that show that when President Mahama promises, he is able to deliver. And therefore, the things that we're talking about, the 24-hour economy, for example, he talks about incentives for the private sector. What is his track record? During his time, he provided incentives to the pharmaceutical companies. And these pharmaceutical companies were able to increase production, expand, and create more jobs. So if such a person tells you that I'm going to bring about a 24-hour economy, mentions the various sectors, and this is where he's going to put his emphasis on, bring policy propositions that will enhance that sector, I believe him.
Okay. If there are, in a minute, some last words you want to touch on, what would they be? Just in a minute, 60 seconds.
So I'd say that 2024, I think where we are now as a country, it goes beyond just NDC MPP. 2024 is about the future of this country. It's about the soul of this country. It's about the future of our children. These people have messed up so much. They've left huge debts. The country cannot afford to have MPP in power for another day. Another day to be too much.
Well, someone will say it's a contest.
So we must all come together, Ghanaians, the NDC, MPP, ask yourself, this state of the economy, the debts that have been left behind, that every Ghanaian owes over 20,000 Ghana cedis. Is this sustainable? Is there a future for your children? My answer is no. So we need to change. So let's all come together, work hard, and particularly for the NDC, our chances are so clear. It's like having a penalty in a match in extra time, and the goalkeeper on the other side is injured. But therein lies the danger. If you are not careful and you start jubilating prematurely, you go and play the ball over the bar, God forbid. We must all come together, put everything aside. I lost an election. The world is not over. We are moving forward. We must all come together and work hard in unity of purpose. Forget about all petty things. Somebody has done this to you. It's irrelevant. It's of no consequence. And let's all come together and work hard and ensure that we rescue this country come 2024.
Elvis Afriyie Ankrah, is a former director of elections of the NDC and a former minister for youth and sports. We've been having this interaction, but next, we know the beautiful Cookie went to the United States and had an interaction in the city of Philadelphia, as well as the Philadelphia Green Eagles and their home base.